Very much, guys. Should there be any sort of movement by you on this whole issue, would that then affect the power production that Mighty River Power produced to the national grid? I mean, is that a factor that would come into any alteration of the upper and lower limits that you have consents for?
I think there's no doubt that any restriction of the operating range would have some impact on how we can operate. But I think the key issue here is more about how we solve the erosion problems rather than look at that. But in answer to your question, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't provide that answer. But once you start affecting the range that we have, then there'll obviously be implications somewhere.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, Leroy and Gavin. On slide number 21, looking there at the actual versus natural at the higher end, at the right-hand side of the graph, can you give us an indication do you have the data to say what time of the year those levels are occurring?
Councillor Williams, through you, Rick, we could look into that, but no, not off the top of my head over that. It is a decadal representation, and we just wouldn't have that information to hand right now. But if you're interested, we could certainly follow that up.
Yeah, no, I would be interested. There has been suggestions by the Friends of Lake Taupo that under the regime prior to your resource consent, that there was summertime levels that were adhered to, and they have made suggestions publicly that that this is the time when the weather bombs strike. But of course, as you've alluded to in your presentation, there's a number of factors other than straight water levels. But could you just make a comment? Because of course our concern as councillors is how do we actually make a prediction out of what to budget for? And that's, I guess, the question is, how can we actually make a budget around erosion control when it seems that it's on an escalating level from the information that has been presented to us.
Just reflecting on the upper levels, Councillor, when the gates were installed, we had a maximum operating level of 357,387. We have a current consented maximum control level of 357.25, so it's come down. It's come down since 41. The summer step you referred to was a specific agreement with specific parties, and it was on the presumption of a summer risk. The consenting process, quite rightly in our opinion, argued that high levels are a risk throughout the year. Our higher inflows occur later in the year, and we now have and it's shown in your slide, those frequency obligations which are better than natural to meet. So we have a broader perspective of managing high levels now than we've ever had, to the benefit of Taupo.
Sorry, Mr. Leach, are you referring to slide 21?
I suppose while Lever is looking for that one, it's I guess the only other point I'd make too is that we do have a more sophisticated modelling process now of trying to anticipate those higher inflow events. And the summer step was 15 centimetres effectively, and we can have a 20 centimetre rise in the lake within a sort of 36-hour period. So even if you start at that 150 below where we would be where you could have an MCL, the lake, you get those high inflow periods. If you get 1,000 to 2,000 cubic coming in, it'll go up regardless. So it is a difficult one. And I guess back to your question, how do you budget for that? How do you try and anticipate that? I guess that's the non-exact science. We don't know what weather bombs are coming at us. We don't know what selective wind events are coming at us. And it is a difficult one.
Thank you. Councillor Mincher.
Thanks, Gavin and Leroy. Just obviously the summer step was there for a reason. Is there? Can it be gone back to the summer step? Is that the middle ground that we're moving to, or is it just something that doesn't fit economically, like Keith was hinting? Or
I would argue, Councillor Mincher, we've got a more sophisticated process in place now than we previously had. Through the 2006 consent, and it's slide 18 I was referring to, we now have year-round obligations around high lake levels year-round. We never had that before.
So we effectively have a tool in place that there's a trigger for us to start to look more to a four gates approach with trying to use all the predictive tools that are available to us in terms of forecasting, in terms of a long range of historic data that tells us at certain times of the year what you would expect in terms of inflows. So we use that predictive model to say, okay, when we hit that trigger, then that's a trigger for us to start to try and bring the lake down, which is a much more sophisticated tool than just setting it 150 mils below. As I would say, that's overnight that can jump up 20.
feeling it was good in theory, but in practice you feel you're ahead of the...
Yeah, I think so. And I guess the point that Leroy is probably making on the slide 18 is that if you look at those natural exceedances, where our consent limit is set below those, so we're actually required to manage to better than what you would have in terms of an annual exceedance event naturally. And I guess that's the point. I suppose Johnny made a comment around. I think it was the reference to 3 times in 8 years over 2.5, and I guess what the counter to that was the actual. But if you looked at the natural, it would have gone over 3 times in 6 years. So I guess you have to look at the two. Am I making myself clear? So in actual we went over 2.5 3 times in 8 years. Looking at the simulated, it would have gone over 3 times in 6 years. And that's the nature of 1 in 5, 1 in 20, 1 in 100-year events. I mean, you'll all be aware that we seem to get 1 in 100-year events about every 5 years in terms of the inflows at the moment.
Councillor Truman.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. You said that Māori River Power would be happy to come to the table to do with the works budget and contributing to that, paying the fair share. How would you anticipate estimating what that fair share would be?
I think that's obviously it's a key question, and I think the commissioners. One of the recommendations of the commissioners in the foreshore strategy was that the parties get around the table and have that discussion. And I guess that's all we've been asking for since 2009 is let's have that discussion. But I think it'll be a combination of, in our view, what is fair in terms of our impacts. But of course, we're also keen to get this thing sorted also. But we just don't want to be left sitting there, the only ones at the table. And I think that's unfair to expect us to fund the lion's share of these works. So I'm sorry I can't be more definitive, but I think that really is that's probably one of the key questions that we've got to answer, and that really will come from a matter of sitting around the table and let's look at what the cost is in front of us. I mean, I haven't seen final costings for that capital works plan either, so I don't know what the orders of magnitude are. There's other parties that need to sit around the table also, obviously, and that's part of that negotiating process that we're keen to have.
Councillor William.
Just.
You're okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Henderson.
Just a question. I've got 3 questions actually. But under 6.12, it requires Māori River Power to forward the results of the monitoring program. The condition also requires the comparison of data with previous results, identification of trends, etc. The 3 questions I have is what's your understanding as to who's responsible for that? Is it being done, you believe, adequately at present? And thirdly, as it's not currently a specific condition to be monitored, what's being done about monitoring the high lake levels in the summer, specifically with high wind events? Is there anything being done in monitoring around that?
Let me make a start on that, and Leroy, you chip in. But certainly, let's answer the last question first.